Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are all having a great day who is listening. I'm your boy Nofty, and I am ready to start something new today. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time now, and I'm somebody who really likes listening to podcasts, especially about sports. Wherever I go, I'm always talking about sports. I'm always trying to get more information. I'm always trying to gain more knowledge when it comes to mainly basketball and football, also music. And I basically just wanted to start something. We're starting small right now. We're starting low. We're trying to do something like, I'm trying to do something like a podcast as of right now. Of course, it's just me right now, but I'm hoping that down the line I'll be able to get more people on. I'm talking guests. I'm talking maybe other members. But I want somebody who's really knowledgeable. I don't want anybody that's just on here, and they're saying the only players that they know are Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, and Jamar Chase or something like that, and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Luka Doncic. That's not what I want to hear. So I've just been wanting to do something like this for a long time now, and I'm going to start calling this the Send 'Em Home podcast. We're sending them home because that's what we're doing. We're taking the other podcasts out there, the ones that are bogus, and we're sending them home. Because this is the real podcast. This is what we want to listen to. And I've tried something like this before in the past with my Simply Ball kind of podcast, kind of short video type of thing. Highly inspired by Kenny For Real, King of the Fourth Quarter. Through the Wire, big listeners to them. And I want to do something a little different now. I want to do something that's more podcast, a little bit more longer, and things that could really spark a discussion. And I'm not doing this because I want to just, have people listen to my stuff. I don't even care about my numbers. I want this to be for people who really, truly want to listen to this and who really want to talk sports. I'd love to hear you guys' comments. I'd love to hear you guys, DM me and talk to me. All my links will be in the description. I just want this to be an open type of thing where you can have your opinion and it's going to be okay, but we'll tell you how we feel about it without people just getting angry or upset and just causing that to be like a toxic circle. I want this to be a very real circle and just be somewhere that we can just have great discussions. And so I'd love to see you guys take part in the comments, DM me, stuff like that. But we're gonna start this off. I'm gonna mainly be somewhat of a NBA, NFL type podcast. Maybe talk about music here and there. And but we're going to start this off today with something that's been on my mind a lot lately, because a couple weeks ago I was saying, man, the Seattle Seahawks have one of the best receiving cores in the NFL. It sucks that Geno Smith is their quarterback. Well, now obviously, that's changed a little bit because Geno Smith has been stellar this year. He really has, but it sparked a discussion in my mind that was kind of like, I wonder what, like, if I really just took time to look at all the receiving cores in the league and I really just thought about it, I wonder who has some of the best teams, or who's the highest on the list for receiving cores, because I don't know. There's obviously the best receivers in the league. This is not what this list is about. This list is all about your receiving cores as a whole. Obviously, if you have a top 10, top 5 guy, and then you have some decent players around him, you're going to be high on the list. But it's not just about, man, here's just a good example. I mean, a team like the Texans, they have Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is better than probably anybody on the Patriots or something like that. But they have nobody else around him. So the Patriots would rank higher in that situation. It's just like that. And now another situation is injuries. I mean, like, injuries definitely take a factor. They're a factor. They take something. But I'm talking about health. This is at full health. However, If you got good example is Jamar Chase is out for 4 to 6 weeks or something like that. Jamar Chase is still giving the Bengals a huge edge. However, somebody like the New Orleans Saints, Michael Thomas is a good receiver. However, when's the last time we've seen that man fully healthy? I mean, it's been like 3 years now, and he just got out again with a season-ending injury, who I'm very upset about because I just traded Najee Harris and Deontay Johnson pretty much for him and David Montgomery. Very upset about that because he got a hurt toe. I mean, that's crazy, but just something like that. It's not saying, it's not completely taking injury into, the situation, but it is taking it as a factor for sure. So we're going to start this off, and I'd love to hear you guys. Like I said, please comment. Please. All right, so let's get in. Send them home podcast. Let's go. So this 2022-23 NFL wide receiving cores list, all 32 teams. I'm just going to rank them. And at 32, this one really hurts my heart, but man, it's just got to be the New York Giants, my favorite team. We've had some of the worst. We've had one of the worst receiving cores I've seen in my life since I watched football. I mean, I haven't watched my whole life, and I'm not going to say like I'm a vet of watching, but I've watched for a good amount of years now, and I'm very like observant of what I'm watching. I know a lot of the guys that are playing. I know what I'm doing, like, for the most part. So this team has been brutal, and injuries have played a factor for sure, but the guys just keep getting injured. Of the guys that have been decent, we've lost guys like Odell Beckham. We lost guys like that, and it's just it's been brutal. We paid guys like Kenny Galladay, and it's horrible now because he's so bad that number one, he's always injured, which we knew when we first got him. I always talk to my dad about stuff like this, and when we first got Kenny Galladay, I was pretty happy because yes, he's injured all the time, but when he's on the field, he is dynamic. He's a good football player. Well, since he signed with the Giants, neither one of them, one of them has been true, but the other one has not. The fact of him getting injured a lot has been the case. The factor of him being a good football player when he's on the field has not been the case, and he has been brutal out there. He can't beat anybody in coverage. He's slow, he's washed, he's horrible, and he is making a bag from us. He's just killing our chances of being something truthfully good, which I can't even complain because the Giants have been really good so far this year, and we're 6-2, which is like wow. But he's robbing us of being anything, I think, to taking us from the next level right now. I mean, I think he's making like $19 million on the cap. It's brutal. And he's just, not only is he disappointing, but he's actually just a bad football player. And if we released him right now, I don't know how many teams would be calling his phone. I don't know if anybody would be calling his phone. But, yeah, we have one of the worst. I think Daniel Jones is a very underrated quarterback. I'm not saying he's anything amazing, but he gets the job done when he needs to get done. He throws very consistently. He's had turnovers throughout his career, but this year he's been great on turnovers. He's only had like a couple picks and a couple fumbles, but he's been really solid so far this year. But he's had nobody to throw the ball to. I mean, the best receiver, I want to give credit to a couple guys on the team. Wan'Dale Robinson looks like he can be a solid player down the line. He's not anything great, and his hands really scare me a little bit. A couple of his games that he's had that have been kind of big have just, how do I say it? All his catches and his big plays have all been him like bobbling it, which scares me a little bit. Yeah, he got the job done, so I can't say anything, but that kind of stuff scares me a little. And then you got people like Darius Slayton, who up until this year he's had really bad hands. He can't really do. He's a good route runner, but when he gets open and he gets the ball thrown to him, he is just brutal. And I mean, up until this year, I mean, he was completely out the rotation at the beginning of the year. Injuries happened, so now he's back. and he's probably our number one receiver as of right now. He's been solid over the past couple of weeks, so I do want to, shed some light on him. But still, I mean, he's not bringing it over the top. I mean, we got guys like Richie James, who was playing okay in the beginning of the year, but he's been brutal. He lost us the game the other day. We have guys like Sterling Shepard, who is pretty good when he's out there, but he can't stay out there at all. He's another one of those guys that just gets killed by injuries again every year. I mean, man, he's out for the year. He's out for the year. He's out for the year. I mean, this guy cannot stay healthy at all, and it sucks because he's pretty good. And so we really just don't have any big names. We don't have anybody. We don't have a lot of depth, and I mean, it's scary. Our team is scary. I just want to make sure I cover everybody. I have notes. I was up late last night making notes just for everybody, making my list. And, so the one other guy that I wanted to talk about is a guy named David Sills. And David Sills, some people love him. I don't know why, because he has no qualities really. Well, I can't say that. I can't say that because you watch David Sills and he's one of the worst receivers that get reps in the NFL, and he can't do anything with the ball. He can't catch. He can't run with the ball. He really can't do anything. The one big factor I'll say about David Sills that I love is he is a really good blocker for a receiver. But past that, you can't say much about him. This team has just been riddled by injuries, and their depth alone really isn't that good. So they're number 32. Now, the team that I have over them has probably the worst receiver depth in football. But they do have somebody that's holding them up. I talked a little bit about him already. But number 31, I got the Houston Texans. Now, of course, they are led by Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is a very dynamic receiver, very fast. He's a vet. And right now, currently, they're having a little bit of problems. So I did kind of take that into consideration. But they just have literally, I mean, after Brandon Cooks, you can't trust anybody else with that ball. I mean, Philip Dorsett is okay. He's like a fourth best, fifth best receiver on most people's roster. I mean, he's not good, and I don't know. Nico Collins, he got hurt, but he was showing slight flashes of him being solid. Chris Moore, man, I don't know. He's been put into a situation where he's kind of he has to be something decent, and he really hasn't done anything yet so far. I can't really talk too much on it because it's only been a couple games for him now that he's really had kind of a spotlight, but he's just nobody on this roster is really moving me. They got Tyron Johnson. I mean, all these guys are just not really. They don't have really much big of a name, and Brandon Cook's their only guy, and right now he's having huge problems with the team. He doesn't even want to play for them, and I mean, I don't know. They couldn't get a deal done. Their ratings really getting hurt. They're only, one over the Giants, and if Brandon Cooks really decides not to play for them again this year, or he doesn't do anything like that, they're the last receiving core in the league. They have no depth, no anything. Now this isn't taking into consideration tight ends or anything like that. This is wide receivers alone, and even in the tight end department, I mean they're brutal. I mean the Texans are one of the worst teams in the league. Luckily they have a guy like Damian Pierce in the backfield, but their receiving core is horrible. Davis Mills, I've seen glimpses from him that he can be decent. He's not going to be decent at all with these receivers. I mean, these receivers are horrible. They're just brutal. I mean, so Brandon Cooks is holding them up to not being the last in the league, but past that, they're horrible. They're really bad. So next up on the list is another team that had a great receiver. He's actually not on the team anymore. But they have a guy that's coming up, and he's gonna be good. But as of right now, no depth again. It's the Atlanta Falcons at number 30, and I mean Drake London. I think he's gonna be really solid. I think he's gonna have a really good career, and but He hasn't done anything great yet. He hasn't had a great breakout year for his rookie season, which I'm not expecting him to. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying, I mean, you seen yesterday, he got ripped badly, and that was a huge play. And I'm not taking too much against him for that because first couple weeks he was dynamic, and he doesn't have a ton going on with him. Cordell Patterson's been out for most of the year. He's got Marcus Mariota throwing the ball, which I'm a big Marcus hater. Anybody that knows me really knows that. And their team is really not good, and I think that he's going to be outstanding someday. I think he is. I don't think he's ever going to be insanely good, but he's a bigger receiver. He's got talent. He can catch the ball, and he's just I think he's going to be good, but past that, I mean, they got I don't even know I forgot to say his name, but Zacchaeus, I think it's Olidimi Zacchaeus, something like that. I think he's one of the more underrated receivers in the league because he's never gonna get big numbers, never gonna do anything, but he does. He always is there when they really need him to in the big parts of the game, and he's not bad. He holds onto the ball very good, and he's just, he's not. I'm not making him out to be anything he's not, but he's a really solid receiver, and I think a lot of teams would take somebody like that. But again, as their third, maybe fourth best guy on the team. He's their second, at times first, and that's just brutal. I mean, then they got a guy like Demary Bird, who was on the Panthers for a while, really fast, but past that, nothing. He's not a great route runner. He's not great at catching. He's not great at really anything other than that he's fast, and he's just, he's their third best receiver on the roster, and it's like, wow, but then they also have a guy like Bryan Edwards, who I think will be okay for them. He showed the Raiders last year that he can be a decent receiver when, there's guys that come out and stuff, but he's not anything great. And he also got a big injury this year. I think he's out for the year. So they're coming in pretty low just because, their guy, Drake London, is in his rookie year. So you can't give him too much credit, and especially with a team that really lacks depth like that, you can't really give him too much credit. But Drake London alone is Drake London and Zacchaeus are really really helping him up right now. So next team after that, I have a team that it makes sense why they're up here, but I figured they'd be slightly higher just because they do have a big name on the team, but he has been so brutally disappointing, and I can't hold it against him too much because he's had Baker Mayfield throwing the ball, P.J. Walker throwing the ball, Sam Darnold throwing the ball. I mean, you can't be good like that. This is the Carolina Panthers we're talking about here, and the guy that I'm talking about is DJ Moore. DJ Moore, I think he's a really solid receiver, and we've seen him prove it. He's a fast guy. He's a great route runner. He holds onto the ball well, and even this year, I mean, last week, not this past week, but the week before, he had a huge game, and, he didn't until the end of the game when he came up huge, and then he also kind of came up badly because he took his helmet off, which really cost him a little bit. But he's got so much talent, and I think it's really being wasted because he's just been so, I don't know, he's been really, you can't be good in an offense like that. Let's just put it like that. And they have other guys on the team. I mean, they had hold on, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a check real quick. But they had a guy, they had a couple guys, like Rashard Higgins that were supposed to come in and do something, but he got injured. Then you got Laviska Shenault, who are just, I mean, I'm a big Laviska Shenault guy. I mean, coming out of college, he got drafted by Jacksonville, and I really liked Laviska Shenault. I thought he was going to be something big, and he, I invested in his cards. I did all that. He has been one of the most disappointing players for me by far, and he's just been. It's really unfortunate, man. I think he showed glimpses too, because earlier in the season he had a big game, but he's not great. And They got Marshall Jr. He's shown glimpses of being okay, but all these guys are guys that are just like, they're not moving the needle for you. They're okay guys to plug in when somebody gets hurt. I mean, you're not winning anything with them. You're not doing anything. You're not giving your quarterback the best chance. And then you got a guy like Shi Smith. Had somewhat high expectations for him, and I think a lot of other people did too. Fast guy, good route runner, but he, man, he's been very disappointing. He's been forgotten about a lot of the time, and they just have a very rough receiving core. DJ Moore holds it down a little bit, and then they have some other pieces that are okay, but DJ Moore has been rough this year, and that's why their rating is so low. They have a little bit better than guys like the teams like the Texans and Atlanta, but they've been very underwhelming. That's been very obvious. So we're just going to move on. Not much to say about Carolina. They're pretty laughable. Then we got the Denver Broncos. Just not a good team this year. They're rough. Cortland Sutton's shown flashes of him being really, really, really solid. But then he has weeks, like the past 4 weeks we've seen, he's done nothing. He's a bigger guy, he's physical, so it's like I could see it, but they've been just bad this year. Their offense has been brutal. It's hard to watch, and you can't expect them to be great like that. Guys like Jerry Jeudy are a little on the faster side. They're pretty good. But nobody like that is ever going to be the second best receiver on a championship team unless your defense is outstanding, which their defense is good, but it's not that good to where they're really a good team. Russell Wilson's been brutal. Their run game has been killed since Javonte Williams has been out. It's been rough. KJ Hamler, I see some light with KJ Hamler because he's very fast and he's a good ball player. He really is. So he could maybe show something eventually, but as of right now, he hasn't done enough. He's been hurt for a lot of his career. Then Tim Patrick was a big loss because he played really solid for them last year, and he got hurt early on in the season. So yeah, they just have a very average, mediocre receiving core. They don't have any big names. They don't have a lot of depth. They have those three guys with Tim Patrick getting hurt. They have Hinton. I mean, they don't have those guys. It's just been a lackluster offense, and their rating right here proves it. Next up, I want to say the Tennessee Titans. They've also been riddled by injuries this year pretty badly. I mean, they have Robert Woods, and he's pretty washed, I think. I think he's still an okay receiver, but the ACL injury really affected his career, and he isn't going to be the player we've seen before. Sorry, my fault. But then we have a guy like Nick Westbrook-Akeen. He shows glimpses of him being okay, but he's never a guy that you want to rely on like that, which is why they got guys like Treylon Burks in the draft, which he was playing pretty solid before he got hurt. I think he was going to be one of the best rookie receivers in this class for sure. But he got a big injury, and now he's out for the year as well. Kyle Phillips out for, I don't know if he's out for the whole year or not, but he's definitely out for a long time. He's been out for a long time. Another young guy like that who looked like he was going to be solid as well. Really just, I think their receiving core has the ability to be maybe at the 20 mark of these lists, but they just been hurt by injuries, and they don't have a ton of depth either. I mean, right now with those two big injuries, Robert Woods and Akini have been really the only two guys that you can really trust with the ball. And I don't know. I want to see a little bit more. I want to see a guy for them, and I want to see. You got Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in football. You got to give him some options at the receiver market for sure. So, this is actually that team was actually a team that I actually ended up switching after I made the full list with this next team, only a spot up, but I think I originally had the Titans over the Steelers. Now I switched it and I have the Steelers above. I think it's really just because of the injury problems, and I think Deontay Johnson's better than anybody they have Deontay Johnson this year has been, how do I put this? Not the best, but he gets a ton of targets, and he's pretty. When he gets the ball, he knows what to do with it. That's just a problem with him. He's not a great pass catcher. That's been his big problem throughout his whole career. And I love Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's a guy that I've always picked up on fantasy. He's a guy that I always just I want him to do good because he when he gets the ball, he's a dynamic player, but he's just that's just a huge problem for him. And then I got, they just traded away Chase Claypool, which opens up a spot for George. Well, this is the thing. I was looking at it, and I'm like, oh, they traded Chase Claypool, so now this opens a spot for, Deontay's going to get more catch. Deontay Johnson's getting about 10 targets a game right now, so what does this really do other than the fact that you just traded away your guy? Well, George Pickens, as a rookie, he's going to get more opportunity, which I think is huge because he is, as much as he's been memed, as much as he's done, whatever, he's a solid football player, and I think he's going to be really good someday, but he just, he's too young right now to put him too high. And then after that, Anthony Miller, they got in the offseason, he got hurt, he's out for the year. He was okay. Then I'm looking, and the next guy on their depth chart is Calvin Austin, who I'm sorry, I've never heard of before. These guys are just like literally practice squad players after that. Like, I don't know why they're on the team. Well, I'm not saying I don't know why they're on the team, but I'm saying I don't know how that can be your best receivers on your team. That just can't happen, and that's why the Steelers are so bad this year. I mean, they're just not a good team, and it shows from the receivers. Deontay, love you, Deontay. George Pickens, I think you're going to be really good, but man, it's just the no depth is really bringing me down. I just think that Deontay and George Pickens really helped them and put them over a team like Tennessee, where they've been riddled by injuries. And they have a guy like Robert Woods as their best receiver, who's okay, but he's kind of washed at this point. Then we, after this, we start getting into teams. I mean, I'm really impressed actually. I thought there was a lot more teams that had really rough receiving cores, and it's just not the case. I think a lot of these teams have competent receiving cores, and this is when we start getting into receiving cores that are decent. We have about a couple, like 3 more that are like pretty average, but then after that, it really takes a step up. So then at 25, we got the Baltimore Ravens. Now, they just had really bad news the other day as Rashad Bateman, who was their best receiver so far this year, he is out for the season. Unfortunate. Prayers up for him, but they found a guy in Devin Duvernay who's very solid for them, but it still is going to be Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is just the guy that just will leave them in the shadows because he's so good. And then they got a guy like Isaiah Likely now who came in, and you've seen how good he was when he came in when Mark Andrews went out, and I want to see what he does tonight. But they have some solid receivers. They have a guy like DeMarcus Robinson. I mean, they have okay depth, but it's really not great. And, Rashad Bateman is now injured. But at this point, they have some solid receivers. And with a guy like Lamar Jackson, obviously a great player, but he doesn't have the best arm. So with them, being as solid as they are as guys who have pretty much only played for the Ravens is impressive for sure. And, so I think that's a decent place to have them. They're not too low. They're not too high. That's all about it. That's pretty much all I gotta say. Next team up is a team that gets heavily frowned upon, and I think it's literally just because they lost such a good player in Devontae Adams. I got the Green Bay Packers here at number 24. They don't really have the guy, and that's a big problem with it. But I hear a lot of people talking down on Allen Lazard, and I watch Allen Lazard, and he not only is he a great blocker on the edge, but he also can catch the ball. He made some big catches in yesterday's game. He had a big game, and not only that, but he's been extremely consistent. He's caught touchdowns in like half the game he's played, and he's just been solid. And I'm not saying he's a number one option. He should not be a number one option, but The only reason why they're pretty high is because they do have depth. They have a guy like Randall Cobb, who unfortunately got hurt recently, but I think he's coming back somewhat soon. I couldn't tell you honestly, but then they have a guy like Romeo Doubs, whatever you want to say. But he as a rookie has played solid. I think he's shown glimpses, but the Packers this year are just horrible. I mean, they're just they're falling apart, and you can't judge them too much of off what they've done, but you can see his flashes of really being solid. And I think give him a couple of years, he's going to be a very, very solid receiver. You got rookies like Christian Watson and Amari Rodgers, who have both been solid when they've played. Amari Rodgers isn't the best, but he had a couple of weeks in the beginning that were solid. Christian Watson's been really solid. I want to just take a second to talk about Sammy Watkins because it somewhat makes me sad. Sammy Watkins was a guy that used to be really dynamic with Buffalo. He played for the Ravens for a little. He played for the Chiefs, and he was okay there, but he's never been insane. He's never been insanely good. He's never been bad. He, at this point, is bad. I don't know why they're playing him because I've watched him so many times this season just give up on his route, and I don't even blame him because he's so old. It looks like it hurts him to move. He is just so slow out there. He doesn't run for the ball. Aaron Rodgers isn't putting it where he needs to put it for him. And it's just been a mess this year. I mean, this receiving core is really average, and the only thing that they really got going for them is that they have some solid receivers and they have a lot of depth. And they have some really young players that are worth something. But as far as just them in the totality of the NFL receiving corps, they can't be too high. I mean, there's teams with guys like Justin Jefferson, guys like that. They don't have that guy, which I can't fault them for because they lost their guy in Devontae Adams this offseason. But I thought they were going to be doing a lot worse without Devontae Adams as far as just receiving corps because the Packers have been brutal. But yeah, I think this receiving core gets a lot of shade for something that they really don't necessarily need. So that's where I have them at. The next team is another team that also I've heard get a lot of shade throughout the offseason and stuff like that. And I'm starting to think that they kind of deserve it. They just have some decent depth, and sometimes guys step up for them. I got the New England Patriots here at 23. I think they found a guy in Jacoby Myers who's pretty solid. He's been really consistently good with a guy like Bailey Zappi throwing the ball, Mac Jones, who could be decent, but he's really been bad this year. And then they got Devontae Parker, who is one of the worst route runners in football, but he's still a solid football player. He's still a good receiver, and we've seen flashes from him this year that have been, he's not too bad. But still, you don't want him as your number 2 receiver. But then they got guys like Kendrick Bourne, who has had a really rough year, and I'm disappointed because last year he really showed flashes that he was going to be something maybe really good. Sorry about that. He was going to be something really good, and he's been extremely disappointing this year, and I don't really know why, but I just hope he can find it. I hope he can find his way back really into the rhythm because he has been kind of out of the rotation this year. It's been really disappointing. But they got the guys like Nelson Aguilar. Of course, he played for the Eagles for a long time, but he's shown flashes. He had a couple big games this year, but these guys aren't anything crazy. But another team just like the Packers here, where they have some decent depth, and Jacoby Myers is really that guy. I think he's pretty much in the same category with Allen Lazard. And honestly, I just think, I don't know. I think the Packers and the Patriots are about the same territory because they have about the same thing going on. They have a guy that's solid as their number 1 option, but he shouldn't be a number 1 option, and they have some good depth. That's about it. I just think I'm taking the experience from guys like Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, and Kendrick Bourne over what they got in Dubes and Watson and stuff like that. But I'm just gonna, they're pretty much in the same tier. I can't really put one over the other, but I have to go with the Patriots for right now because that's what I put. Going on to 22nd here. This is where things start stepping up. This is where I got the Washington Commanders. Now, Terry McLaurin is still a very solid receiver. He has fallen off a little bit. He was one of the best receivers in the league a couple of years ago, I would say. But you can't be too good when you got guys like Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, and I mean, you got to cut him a break a little bit, but he is a very dynamic receiver. We all know that. Curtis Samuel has played very good this year. Surprisingly, he's always been solid, but he's played really good this year, and he's been consistently solid as well. Yesterday, he had that huge catch, which we need to talk about that a little bit because that was brutal. I mean, Minnesota fans, I'm praying for you because the ref literally ran into your corner. He ran into your cornerback. I mean, that's crazy. I would be so mad if I were you guys. So I'm sorry about that, but that was a huge play for him. He scored that touchdown there. I mean, so yeah, I think they got those two guys who are really solid. I think anybody would take those guys. And then you got a guy like Dommy Brown who had a couple decent games this year. I think he had 2 touchdown game. Not anything that's moving the needle crazily, but then you got Jahan Dotson who got hurt earlier on this year. We don't really know what to see from him. I think he can be okay. Cam Sant. I mean, there's not too much going on for them, but they have 2 really good receivers, which is why they're here. Moving up, this is another team that is very dependent on one guy. But, however, they also have another guy that's been solid lately. This is going to go to the 21st spot. It's going to go to the Cleveland Browns. This is the Amari Cooper show. I mean, Amari Cooper is definitely one of the higher tier receivers in football. This team really depends on him to be good, and I can't really say anything bad about Amari Cooper. He's a big body receiver. He's also fast. He's a good route runner. I think once they get Deshaun Watson back, they're gonna have Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper. I think it's gonna be dynamic, and I think it's gonna be really good. But so far at this point this year, you can't put him any higher. I mean, it's Amari Cooper, and then Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's really not great, but these past couple weeks he's looked really solid. He's not moving the needle crazily for me. They got David Bell. Anthony Schwartz is very up and down. He's either brutally awful or he's okay. They just have no depth at all, and I can't give a team that much credit for having no depth. If they had another guy like Curtis Samuel or something like that, they'd be a lot higher because Amari Cooper is really that good. They don't even need depth to be somewhat high, but I don't know. They're just very dependent on Amari Cooper. I think Peoples-Jones is kind of stepping up. It's just up until then, you can't even say too much about them because we got to also see what they look like when Deshaun Watson comes back. I think that's going to be fun. So hitting the 20 mark here, we got I got the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars is one of the hardest teams to rank for me because they just traded for a guy like Calvin Ridley, and he's so good, but I can't put him as high as some people that I want to because he hasn't suited up for them yet. And he's suspended all year, and he hasn't played football all year, so I can't put him too high. But the fact that they have Calvin Ridley next year, it's going to be great. Now, the only reason why I felt comfortable with putting them here is because their depth on this team is actually pretty good, and I wish that they could really get going because they got guys like Christian Kirk, who's very underrated. He's really solid. He's been their number one option this year, which is not great. It's another one of those Allen Lazard situations, but Christian Kirk, I think, is a little bit more dynamic than Allen Lazard. Then we got Zay Jones, who has really been nothing up until this year, and he's been pretty solid so far for the Jaguars. Not anything great, but he's been a solid guy. Then you got Marvin Jones Jr., who I love. I've always been a huge fan of him. He just gets it done. And he's definitely on the older side now, but he just gets the work done, and he's always there when you need him. And he's got great hands. And then after that, you go a little bit further down. They got guys like oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. Jamal Agnew, who is a great kick returner. He had some flashes last year. He's not anything great, but that's just why they're here. That their depth is pretty solid. And Calvin Ridley, I had to put some consideration into him because they are gonna be nice next year, I think. So yeah, there's not a ton to say about that, but they were definitely one of the harder teams for me to rank. Um, I will be back in 1 second. I need some water. All right, we're back now. Let's just get right back into this list. At number 19, I got the Chicago Bears, who have a new receiving core. Well, not a new receiving core. I can't say that, but they do, because this offseason they got rid of some guys like Anthony Miller. And now they got some new guys like N'Keal Harry, Dante Pettis, and then this offseason they got Claypool. They got Byron Pringle also over the offseason. But Chase Claypool in his Chicago debut, he had a rough debut. I mean, they're throwing the ball, but he didn't do much. He had 2 catches to 13 yards, not anything crazy. They got a guy like Darnell Mooney who's solid. I don't think he's ever going to be amazing, but he's always going to be a solid receiver. He's their number one guy at this moment. I think Claypool will take it over, but as a number 2, I think he's going to be really good. Justin Fields is really coming into his own, so I don't got much bad to say about this receiving core. I actually really like the receiving core. Darnell Mooney is really solid. Chase Claypool is up and down, but he's a good receiver. Dante Pettis, okay, he played for the Giants for a little. Then you got N'Keal Harry. Showed flashes in New England. I mean, I think he's going to be okay there. I mean, he's a solid guy. As the 4th best receiver, maybe 5th, actually. He's really solid. Then you got Equinemius St. Brown, who is, obviously Amonra's brother, so he's kind of in the shadow a little bit, but he's had a really impressive year, kind of out of nowhere, too. They obviously had the big thing in one of the earlier weeks where they both scored at the same time. It was really weird, but it's been more than that for him. He's had a couple of really solid games, and he's one of those guys that you'd love to have as a depth receiver like that. Like, if Darnell Mooney gets hurt and he has to step up to the 2nd, 3rd best receiver on your roster, that's great. And he's, with Justin Fields, he's played really great lately, but he hasn't been great this whole time. And with that, guys like Darnell Mooney, Equinemius St. Brown have been really solid. So you got to give him credit. Byron Pringle hasn't played this year, I don't think. He got hurt early on, so he's also another guy that is pretty solid. I really like Chicago's receiving core, and they're one of the best out there. As far as just you're good with having them, like obviously you'd love like that guy, which Chase Claypool could be that for them. I don't think so, but I guess he could. 18, I got a team which I don't even love because, well, obviously I don't love it, but I think Chicago could outweigh them, but you got to give it to the star power in this situation. I got Dallas Cowboys at this position. CeeDee Lamb is really good. And then you also got Michael Gallup, who is solid. He's not anything crazy, but he's okay. Noah Brown, who came up. I've been a huge Noah Brown fan since he played at Alabama. I was just waiting for him to get a shot, and this year he has, and he's kind of fallen down the rotation again. He's been injured a little bit, but he's kind of fallen down since Michael Gallup came back. But he's shown that he's been a competent receiver when the possessions were given to him. They got Tolbert back. They don't really hit. The problem with them is they don't have any depth really, but their top 3 isn't bad. CeeDee Lamb's a star, so you got to give them credit where it's due. But there's not really much to talk about them. They got CeeDee Lamb, man. That's about it. And then they have some solid receivers around them. It's not even. It's pretty much. It's pretty much just their receiving core. It's not like their whole receivers. But at the 17th spot, 17. Yeah, 17. At the 17th spot, I have the New York Jets. Man, have the Jets been a fun team this year? They have, and they won by 3 against Buffalo yesterday. Huge game for them. And I've been telling everybody I know that the Jets are the real deal. They're not anything that's gonna win big this year or anything, but they are building something for the future that is great. And I'm telling you, guys like Sauce Gardner, guys like Brees Hall, which hopefully hopefully he gets well soon, but and I hope he comes back really impactful. But when he was out there, man, he looked like a beast. Garrett Wilson, who we're going to talk about, their rookie core is really solid, and they got a young core that's just looks like they can be dominant. Not only that, but they're winning right now. So as a young core like that, to be winning, it's impressive. And they don't have as big of the names like CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. They don't have guys like Claypool, but they're gonna. And just for the simple fact that this guy's been really good this year, and he's also got insane potential. Garrett Wilson, he's leading them to this position. But not only that, they also have great depth. They got Corey Davis, who he's been hurt lately, but when he's out there, he's always extremely solid. He's never anything great, and he's never anything bad. He's just always that guy that's good. Then you got Elijah Moore, who he's out up and downs this year. He hasn't gotten the ball a ton. He added the whole like trade request thing, but you seen him yesterday come up a couple big times, and he's got a ton of talent. Last year he was outstanding. Then you got Braxton Berrios, who is no slouch by any means. He's not bad at all, and to take him as your fourth best receiver, I'll take that any day of the week. Then you got Denzel Mims, who hasn't really proven himself yet, but he hasn't been too bad when given the opportunity. That's your fifth best receiver on your roster. You can't ask for much better than that. They have 5 solid receivers, and Garrett Wilson is going to be a star in the NFL. He is outstanding. He really is. I just really like what the Jets got going on over there. But this is the top 16, so now we're hitting the halfway mark. 16, I got the New Orleans Saints. It kind of hurts me to have them here just because it's just raw. I don't like the Saints. I just don't. They haven't had a great receiving core, but the thing that's helping them, Michael Thomas, when he did play this year, was really solid, but I did take a major factor in that as he's hurt all the time. So we can't put too much credit into that. But when he plays, he's good. Jarvis Landry hurt right now, but he's solid. They got Traquan Smith, who's not bad for a rotational guy like that. Then you got they have Marcus Callaway. They have Shaheed, good receiver for them so far. Rookie receiver. They have depth, and that's one thing for sure. They have like 6 competent receivers. But the guy that I really want to talk about with them is Chris Olave. Outstanding rookie year so far with what he's been given. I mean, you got Taysom Hill, you got Andy Dalton, you got Jameis Winston, and he's been a stud so far this year. He really has. And this rookie class, I was just talking about it with my dad the other day. This rookie class is really going to be good, I believe. They're outstanding so far. Garrett Wilson, great. I mean, then the running backs, we're going to say that for a different time, but they've been great. Some of these guys on the defense, like Sauce Gardner, stuff like that, they've been great. Then you got Chris Olave. He's been outstanding, man. He's really going to be a star too, I believe. And he, not only that, but he's been really good this year as well. And the only reason why I give him a slight edge over the Jets is because they do have more depth. And when Michael Thomas is healthy, he's a star. So, you got to give him credit where it's due. But they can't be any higher for me just because these next teams are, pretty good. At 15, I got the Detroit Lions. Very mixed feelings on them. I also didn't know where to put them. But they have a good amount of depth. And not only that, but I'm hoping because I just got my fantasy team, and it's been a roller coaster of emotions this year for him. Amon St. Brown, he's got so much talent. You've seen him this year with a huge game in the second week, big game in the first week. Got hurt a bunch of times. Now he's not really doing too much out there. He's not always being looked at. I mean, you got Jared Goff. I think he's got a ton of talent, though, as a receiver. And I think if he was anywhere else right now, he'd be having a great year. But, they also have depth, too, and that's where I give him a lot of credit. Khalif Raymond's been solid. DJ Chark was solid until he got hurt, but he's what he brings to the table. Josh Reynolds is a solid receiver. Jameson Williams, I can't wait to see what he's doing. Rookie. He hasn't played this year, but I think he's going to be good when he gets out there. You got guys like Cephas out there. I mean, they have some good depth, and I think Amon-Ra has the potential to be a superstar. He's not there yet, but he's shown glimpses of him being outstanding. I hope that he can reach it soon because I like him a lot. But so I think that's a great place to put him because they really have they have the best of both worlds as far as they do have a star and they do have depth. The star hasn't fully reached the potential of what he could be. So a team that I feel like is very underrated. At 14, I got the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Indianapolis, they've kind of been looked at as their receivers are kind of weak, and right now they're going to be a little weak because they got I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Ellinger. They have Ellinger throwing right now, so they're in a rough position right now, and I'm trying to understand still what they're really trying to accomplish with this move by benching Matt Ryan, but they do have a really solid receiving core. They got Michael Pittman, who has really came into his role. He's a very, very solid receiver. He's definitely in the upper tier of the league. You got Paris Campbell, who came up this year, and he's been really solid. He's a good guy to plug in, and he's a good route runner. He's pretty quick. He's got good hands. I mean, he's a guy that you definitely want. I don't know if you'd want him as your second best guy. I don't know if he is the second best guy, because one day this is what I really like about the team. They got him. They got Alec Pierce. They got Ashton Doolin. They got Kiki Cutie. So they got those type of guys, and each one of those guys could have a 5-catch game on any day. 5-catch, like 80 yards. They can have that, but the big problem with them is they can never do it either successfully or together. It's just always one of them. Alec Pierce yesterday, 1 catch. Then you got Paris Campbell. One day we'll have 2 catches or something like that. But then you got the other days where Alec Pierce has 7 for 90. And then you got Campbell, who's got, maybe 8 for 80 or something like that. But you never got him at the same time. You got Kiki Cutie maybe coming in, giving you like 4 catches, 70 yards or something, which you will take that from him because he's like the 5th best receiver on the roster. I just want somebody other than Michael Pittman to really show me something. And, that's what's definitely holding them back. But I think that Michael Pittman, if they can get one more competent guy, I think they're definitely up there for sure. And Michael Pittman needs to take that next big step. And that's really on the Colts for not letting him take that big step. So, up next, I got at 13 the San Francisco 49ers. This team was extremely hard for me because they have Deebo Samuel. That's the only reason why they're here. That's it. But Deebo Samuel is just that good. Like a receiving type of running back type of guy. You know the drill with him. He's just insanely good. And these next couple teams above them will be controversial over him because not only do they have Deebo Samuel, but they do have Brandon Ayuk, who's shown flashes of being really good this year. Still a young guy. They got Juwan Jennings, Ray McLeod. I mean, that's what's really holding them back. I would put them higher if they had one other guy. Maybe they'd be in the top 10 because they got Deebo Samuel. But Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk is really the only 2 guys I trust. Past that is like, Jennings, he's okay. Raymond McLeod is pretty brutal. He has his flashes of being okay. Like, okay at his ceiling. Other than that, like, come on. That's just holding him back. The depth is really holding him back. Not much to say there. 12 is a team that gets brutally frowned upon. It's another team like Devontae Adams. They lost their guy in Tyreek Hill. The Kansas City Chiefs. I was watching them last night, and these receivers, man, they're so underrated when it comes to a lot of them, and they have the best depth in the league probably. Maybe the second best behind the team that actually have it number one. But, you got Juju, who has really came out and been what a lot of people expected him to be with the guy, Patrick Mahomes. He's been really solid over these past couple of weeks. He started off a little slow. You got a guy like Marcus Valdes-Scantling, great route runner, and he's very fast at 6'4". I mean, he's the only problem with him is he doesn't have the best hands, and he's really got to work on that. But he's been solid. McCole Hardman has came out of nowhere, and he's just shot at a cannon lately. He's been playing outstanding, and not only that, but he's a huge playmaker, and he's extremely fast. He can get to where he needs to go exactly when he wants to, and I really enjoy watching him lately. They just picked up a guy like Kadarius Toney, who I hate because he just automatically just decided to start playing as soon as he left the Giants, and we wasted a first-round pick on him. But he also has shown potential. I think he's not that good, but he has shown glimpses of him being really solid. So if they can get him to be a good little playmaker for them, like the McCole Hardman, like guys like that, that'd be great for them. They got a guy like Sky Moore, who I've been very confused why he hasn't gotten more reps, because he's a rookie and their receiving core is quote-unquote struggling a little bit. So I don't know why he hasn't gotten more run, but he's been solid when he's out there. He's a rookie. I think for a rookie he's been really good when he's been out there. Well, I can't say really good, but he's been good. Then you got Justin Watson, who I haven't heard much about him until yesterday, but yesterday he was killing it. He was one of Mahomes' favorite targets out there yesterday. He had a couple of really big plays. He's got a bigger body, so he can get to where he wants to go, and he's just he looks solid so far. I think they have amazing depth, and I think all 6 of those guys have a chance at being something really good. So I think that they just get a lot of hate for no reason. I think it's just because Tyreek Hill. But yeah, I think I can't put them in the top 10, but they're right there at 12. Then another one that I switched with the team above it. At number 11, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm gonna give you both. So 11, I got the Chargers, and 10, I got the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this was a last minute type of switch, and what really carried it for me is I think Keenan Allen is obviously one of the best receivers in the league, and I was thinking of it as the Chargers have more depth, but I can't really say that. I think they do have more depth, and so Philadelphia's got A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen. They're both amazing receivers. I can't hold too much against either one of them. Keenan Allen's been out for almost all year, so that's the one thing you can hold against him. But you know what he can do when he's out there. Devontae Smith and Mike Williams, I think they're both around the same tier. I think they both show flashes of being amazing, but completely two different players though. Then you got for the Chargers in that depth area, you got Guyton. You got DeAndre Carter. You got Palmer. You got Michael Bandy. I mean, these guys are okay. And they're guys that you'd love to have as depth players for sure. I mean, guys like that for your fourth and fifth best players on your receiving core is solid. But the thing is, I've been so unimpressed with them. Like, DeAndre Carter has really been the only guy out of those guys that I could truly say have been solid. And even then, he's been up and down too. But then you got, you got Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal over there for Philadelphia. You got some solid guys over there. I think it just really came down to the fact of A.J. Brown's been healthy this year, and he's been amazing with Jalen Hurts on the best team in football. Devontae Smith's had some really big games. You got to give it to him. Mike Williams now is hurt as well. Keenan Allen's been hurt almost all year. I think I just got to give it to Philadelphia. So now that we're in the top 10, number 9, Team that nobody really expected to be doing anything. I talked about them briefly. Seattle Seahawks, man. I mean, DK Metcalf is insane. He's still amazing. He's such a big body, and he looks so big against these cornerbacks, and he gets up there and he just grabs it, and that's all you can do. Tyler Lockett is a machine. I got to start thinking about him when fantasy comes around because, boy, he always finds a way to get into the end zone, always finds a way to get open. He's a great route runner. He's had some drop issues. He had a couple of big drops against the Giants. Yeah, I think he had a big drop yesterday too, but he also had a big touchdown. Those two alone are really good. And then you got Marquise Goodwin, who's also extremely underrated. He was very solid with the 49ers, and now this year before he just got injured, he's been solid. That top three is really good. DK Metcalf, insanely good. Tyler Lockett, very good. Marquise Goodwin, extremely underrated. Then you got D. Eskridge, who I don't really know too much about. He just came in. He hasn't gotten a lot of run up until this past couple weeks, and then he really wasn't used that much. So I don't really know what to say about him. I think he's a rookie. You can't really go off too much about him. They don't have it's an insane amount of depth, which really is holding them back. But those top three guys, you can't ask for much better in football. You really can't. At number 8, I got the most disappointing team in the NFL this year. Yes, I'm talking to you, Las Vegas Raiders. I am disappointed in you. But you're in the top 10 because you have Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams had a huge game yesterday. And, I mean, we know what Devontae Adams is about. I mean, come on. But Hunter Renfrow, extremely disappointing this year. Matt Collins is, when everybody starts to get hurt or something like that, Matt Collins, very good. When everybody's in, you don't even hear about him. Keelan Cole, whatever. Not a lot of depth, but Devontae Adams is that guy. Hunter Renfrow's okay. Matt Collins is okay. There's not much to say about that. After that, at number 7, another similar team, but a little bit better, Minnesota Vikings. Jay Jettas, Justin Jefferson, outstanding player. Probably, he's up there for the best receiver in the league. I don't know if I can officially call him the best receiver in the league, but he's top 3 undoubtedly. You got Adam Thielen, who's okay. He's kind of washed, but he's he's still a solid guy. KJ Osborne shows glimpses of being okay. Jalen Reagor is pretty brutal, but he's, as a fourth receiver, it's all right. When you got Justin Jefferson on the roster, yeah, we'll take it. So, yeah, that's another guy that's just really leading his team into the top 10. Another one, number 6, is the Los Angeles Rams. They have names, and it looks like they can be an outstanding depth. It looks like they can be an outstanding receiving core when it comes to depth and star power. But really, the reason why they're so high is Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is a receiving core alone that's better than probably almost all of the league. Then you got Allen Robinson, who is, he's solid, but he's been extremely underwhelming this year. Van Jefferson had a huge drop yesterday. Missed most of the year so far, so I can't go off too much of him. But when he's out there, he's okay. Ben Skowronek has, he's been pretty underrated. I think he's a pretty solid blocker, and he's tough when he gets to football. He really is, and I think he's solid, and I think that definitely adds to the conversation about his depth, about the depth of them. Brandon Powell, kick returner, really for the most part. Tutu Atwell, he got hurt, but when he was out there, he looked okay. They have some decent depth, and it's really just Cooper Kupp for the most part, but they do have some solid depth, so they're in the conversation to be top 5, but I just think the teams above them are really, it came close to number 5. I have number 5. I have the Miami Dolphins. It came close because Cooper Kupp is probably the best receiver in the NFL, and the only thing that really put and they do have, the Rams do have better depth than the Dolphins for sure, undoubtedly, but I'm just saying it's simply 2 over 1. Tyreek Hill is a top 5 receiver. Jalen Waddle is probably a top 10 receiver now. So you just got to take the 2 over 1 in that situation. The only reason why they're not any higher is because their depth is brutal. Trent Sherfield, he's had a couple games where he's looked solid. I actually thought he was Jalen Waddle multiple times this year. I was like, it's not Jalen Waddle. But he he's okay, I guess. Cedric Wilson Jr. Yeah, Craycraft. He's just they have no depth, but those two stars alone just overpowers pretty much other every other team that's behind them so far. This is so now we got top four. These teams are depth and they're also just great receiving. They also have the stars. These teams I'm taking over anybody else in the league. At number 4, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. They got Jamar Chase. That's huge. Their top 3 really leads them over everybody because Jamar Chase is outstanding, one of the best receivers. Honestly, yeah, also one of the best football players in the league. Then you got T. Higgins, who's extremely underrated. He's a stud for sure. Tyler Boyd can get the job done. That top 3 is outstanding. I don't think there's a better top 3 in football, to be honest with you. It's just what comes after that. You got Mike Thomas. You got Irwin. I was calling him Steve Irwin yesterday. I forgot what his first name is, but he actually had a decent game yesterday. Mike Thomas is okay, I guess, but that's not good depth at all. It's really just the top 3 that's really holding them together. Jamar Chase is injured right now as well, which is holding them down a little bit. But that top 3, I don't know if you can ask for a better top 3 in football, truthfully. So got them right there. I got to put a team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over them. Their depth is pretty good. So at number 3, I got Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got Mike Evans, who is probably he might be just out the top 5 now, but he's either in it or he's just out of it. Then you got Chris Godwin, who's extremely underrated, I believe. I think he's up there with Mike Evans, and he gets the job done. He doesn't drop balls. He's pretty physical. The other problem is he has had some injury history, but he's not. I think that also gets blown out of proportion because he had the big ACL injury. He's kind of been coming back from that a little bit. He had another little leg injury in the beginning of the year. But then you got Julio Jones, who you still got to give credit to. I mean, he's pretty old now, and he looks like an absolute shell of his former self. But, he's still a competent receiver, and he's also a vet. And then you got Russell Gage, who's not bad at all. Scotty Miller, you seen have a huge end of the game yesterday for them. He kind of comes out of nowhere once in a while, and he just has really good games. They have a lot of depth, and they also have 2 really insanely good receivers. You got Rashad Perryman too coming in once in a while. I just think that's one of the best receiving corps in football by far because of how they do have stars, and they also have great depth. At number 2, this is where it really came. So a toss up, but I think the number 1 is the clear cut, the favorite for the best depth of receiving corps. So at number 2, I got the Buffalo Bills. Not too much to say. They have the depth. They have the star. Stephon Diggs is arguably the best player in football. Best receiver in football. Gabe Davis, when he plays great, he is outstanding. He's so good. Isaiah McKenzie shows flashes of being really good. Shakir, the rookie, he's shown flashes of being solid too down the line. He's not really there yet, but he's a good 4th, maybe 5th best receiver on the roster. Jamison Crowder got hurt, but when he was out there, he was playing solid. They just have a lot of depth, and Stephon Diggs is one of the best receivers in football. I mean, come on. That's just what you got to say. But the number 1 receiving corps in the NFL of the 2022-23 season currently right now is undoubtedly, in my mind, I knew instantly as soon as I was writing it, is the Arizona Cardinals. Undoubtedly. I'd love to hear you guys' arguments about this, but you got DeAndre Hopkins, top 5 receiver in the league for sure. Marquise Brown, who I really didn't have much faith in because he's coming from Baltimore. He's really like the only option besides Mark Andrews over there. He has shown that he is a really good football player with Kyler Murray. He gets the ball. He knows where to go with it. He runs. He's a playmaker. There's no other words for him other than that he is a playmaker. He is a top 15 receiver in the league. Then you got DeAndre Hopkins, top 5. Rondale Moore, extremely fast. Rookie last year. This is his second season. He's been solid this year. He missed a lot of time with an injury, but he's been great. But speaking about injuries, that's what I love about the team. You got Rondale Moore. He gets injured for a little bit. Who do you got coming in? Greg Dortch coming in out of nowhere. He came back down. When Rondale Moore came back, he really went down the roster and you heard nothing about him. But when he was in, he played like an absolute beast. A lot of teams would kill for a guy like Greg Dortch as a, second, third receiver on the roster. And then got AJ Green, who's older for sure, but he's a vet. He's still a good football player. I mean, you can't argue against that. Not only that, but they just added Carolina's probably best receiver of the year, maybe second best. You just got Robbie Anderson, and he's literally probably your sixth best receiver on your roster. I mean, look at this. This is insane. This team has so much depth. You can take any of these guys out for a little, and somebody else will cover them up for a little. DeAndre Hopkins missed most of the year so far this year. You got guys like AJ Green, Greg Dortch, Marquise Brown coming and just being insanely good. I mean, this team is just so good. They've always just been like that. They had guys like Andy Isabella that came in, did solid for them. But this is just the next level. Greg Dortch really came in and he looked like a true, second, third best receiver on a team. And then you just got Robbie Anderson sitting back there. I just can't get over that. I just think that this team is, receiving core-wise, is outstanding. They really need to get their defense together. They need to get a slightly better run game, I think, because James Conner, I think his MVP kind of year last year was really fluky. This team really, if they can really get it together, if Kyler can turn into a slightly better quarterback, and if, these guys can all stay healthy, they can get a little bit better of a running game, they can get a defense, this is it, man. This team could really do something big. I just think when it comes to receiving core, though, you got to give it to them. This team is just stacked when it comes to receivers. You can take anybody off that roster and put them into your lineup no matter what. No matter what team you're on. Any team that I just named, Bills, you're taking Greg Dortch. You're taking him probably over maybe Isaiah McKenzie. I mean, Tampa Bay, definitely taking him over, probably right now, over a guy like Julio. I mean, they just got so much depth, and I love it about them. I really love that about them. I'm going to wrap this one up. This is the first episode of the Send 'Em Home podcast. I'd love to keep doing this. I'm hoping that I could stay committed to it. And I'd love to hear your guys' opinions about it. I'd love to talk more about what's going on around the league, just about in general. I just want to make this list because it's very intriguing to me. And so let me know what you think. Hit that like button, subscribe. Make sure you're here for more content. This is Nofty, and hope you have a great day. Let me know. Please let me know. And it's time to send y'all home. Good night, y'all.